As you know, on this channel, we kind of cover things from the most basic concepts to the most advanced concepts. Now, that said, we will try to kind of navigate between, just enough information for those of us who are beginners and trying to get into this to understand. And hopefully for those of us who are already familiar with the topic and advance in this uh, conversation, will follow and get something as well from that. So hang on while I load up my slides and then we will take it from there. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let me switch to that screen and then we'll take it from there. So let's do that. Awesome. Now we're looking at a slide. So I'm going to pull this here so I can see it a lot better. And then I'm just going to start this one. Perfect. Okay. So we are talking about HTTP and, I have this as the sub header as how the web works only because, HTTP, as I mentioned, forms like a pretty like significant part or the backbone of how the web does work. So hence my subtitle over there. But we'll talk about these as we go on. We'll kind of understand what HTTP is. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it at a high level. Trying to understand what this works, how it enables us to browse the internet, how it enables us to do anything in particular that uses web traffic, and we'll kind of explore some of the concepts as we go on. So let's get into it. Now, that said, we cannot talk about HTTP without understanding URLs. For the most part, HTTP is pretty much made up of URLs in terms of how we navigate to where we want to. So, for example, if you wanted to get to Google, you would have to put in a URL in your browser, and that URL essentially means something and translates to something that your web browser understands. And then it could pretty much like take that request. And now we get into kind of like the backbones of HTTP, which we'll get into further. But for now, let's talk about URLs. We can't talk about HTTP without understanding URL. What is a URL? You've probably seen this for most part. You go to your favorite site, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever, assuming you're sort of going on the web version or on your computer or any of those avenues. If it's not a web app, for most applications such as like Android apps or iOS, you may not see or deal with a lot of these things because they're sort of embedded within the app. They're happening in the back end. They're still using a bunch of URLs and calling servers in the back end and APIs and all those things. You just don't see them. But we're going to kind of attack this from like a traditional perspective where we're looking at, just typically going into your web browser and typing a URL.